On this day, October 31st, a man was born who would be called the Iron Man of India. But what does it mean to be forged from iron? It suggests something unbending, strong, perhaps even cold. The story of Sardar Vallabhbhai Jhaverbhai Patel, however, is not one of mere hardness. It is the story of a man who, with immense will and a clear, pragmatic vision, took a fractured map of a subcontinent and welded it into a single unified nation. His journey begins not in the halls of power, but in the soil of Gujarat, in Nadiad, where he was born in 1875 to a simple farming family. His early life was one of hardship, shaping a spirit of complete self-reliance. There was no elite education waiting for him. His schooling was basic, often self-driven. You can picture a young boy, fiercely independent, traveling far just to get his hands on books, to learn on his own terms. From this background, he forged a single ambition for himself: the law. By 27, he passed his examinations and set up a practice in Godhra. Slowly, meticulously, he saved every rupee. His ambition was larger than a local court. And so, in 1910, at the age of 35, an age when many men are already settled, he traveled to England, to the prestigious Middle Temple Inn in London. With no previous college education, he stepped into this new world. And he did not just survive, he excelled. A course that was meant to take 36 months, he completed in just 30. He finished at the top of his class. When he returned to India in 1913, he was a changed man. He established a very successful, very lucrative practice as a barrister in Ahmedabad. He was known for his razor-sharp intellect, his impeccable Western suits, and a certain aloofness. This was a man entirely focused on his career, with little time or interest for the growing cries for Indian self-rule that were beginning to echo across the country. So what could possibly pull such a man away from a life of comfort and wealth and throw him into the heart of a revolution? The answer, as it was for many, was a meeting with one person: Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Patel first met Gandhi in 1917. Initially, he was skeptical. He looked at Gandhi's simple, ascetic lifestyle, his politics of the soul, and was not convinced. But then he watched. He saw Gandhi's unwavering commitment to serving the public, to the cause of Swaraj, or self-rule. And in Gandhi, Patel recognized a rare combination: a man of deep moral authority who was also a man of practical action. It was a language Patel understood. The encounter was transformative. He abandoned his thriving legal practice, shed his Western suits for homespun khadi, and committed himself fully to the nationalist movement. The sharp barrister became Gandhi's most disciplined and loyal lieutenant. His new path required a new kind of courtroom, and his first major case for the people came a year later, in 1918. In the Kheda district of Gujarat, the crops had failed. The law stated that in such a circumstance, the farmers' land revenue taxes should be suspended. But the British colonial administration refused. Gandhi saw the injustice and turned to his new lieutenant. He entrusted Patel with leading the protest. This was Patel's first great test as an organizer. He traveled from village to village, organizing thousands of farmers, urging them to stand firm, to peacefully withhold their taxes, even as the government began seizing their property, their land, their cattle. His planning was meticulous, his resolve unshakable. He created a structure of defiance that the British could not break. In the end, the government was forced to negotiate. The tax was suspended for the poor. The barrister had won his first major case, not in a court of law, but in the fields of Gujarat. But it was 10 years later, in 1928, that the man became a legend. The struggle in Bardoli was Patel's masterpiece. The Bombay presidency had raised land revenue taxes by a staggering 22%. It was an unjust, crippling burden on the farmers. Patel was called upon to lead the resistance. What he did in Bardoli was remarkable. He mobilized every part of the rural population, men, women, and children, into one unified, unbreakable front. The protest was total. No taxes were paid. They faced down government oppression, property confiscations, and intense intimidation. Through it all, Patel's leadership was a source of immense strength. The people saw his unshakable resolve, and it was the women of Bardoli, in awe of this strength, who gave him the title by which he would be known for the rest of history. They called him Sardar, the chief, the leader. The eventual victory in Bardoli, forcing a complete rollback on the tax hike, cemented his reputation not just in Gujarat, but across the nation. Sardar Patel had arrived. For the next 2 decades, Sardar Patel was the organizational backbone of the Indian National Congress. In 1931, he was elected its president for the Karachi session, where a landmark resolution on fundamental rights and economic policy was passed. He was the ultimate pragmatist. While others engaged in deep ideological debates, the Sardar was focused on the machinery of the movement: how to raise funds, how to organize volunteers, how to make sure the entire structure was strong and disciplined. He formed one part of the great triumvirate of the Congress, alongside Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru. His respect for Gandhi was absolute. His relationship with Nehru, on the other hand, was often marked by friction. Patel, the realist, grounded in the immediate needs of administration and security; Nehru, the idealist, with a grand internationalist vision. They were different men, but they were held together by a shared goal: a free India. As independence neared, that goal was threatened by the prospect of a violent, chaotic division. During the torturous negotiations for partition, Patel was one of the first leaders to accept the grim reality. He saw that continued attempts to force a unity that no longer existed could lead to a catastrophic civil war, a complete collapse of the state. It was a painful, pragmatic choice. As the interim home minister, he then had to manage the fallout, the brutal violence, the mass migrations. He stood firm during one of the darkest hours of the subcontinent's history. And then, on August 15, 1947, freedom arrived. But what was the India that was now free? It was not a single country. It was a tattered map. There was British India, and then there were over 565 princely states, each a self-governing entity with its own ruler, its own army, its own territory. The British had granted them the choice to join India, join the newly formed Pakistan, or remain independent. This was the greatest challenge of Sardar Patel's life. As Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Home Affairs, he was tasked with a Herculean labor: the political and geographical unification of India. A single misstep could lead to the balkanization of the entire country. Assisted by the brilliant civil servant V.P. Menon, Patel employed a masterful, multi-pronged strategy. First, he appealed to the rulers' sense of patriotism, asking them to join in the destiny of a greater, united India. Second, he offered them a clear legal framework, the instrument of accession. It was a simple deal initially. The states would only surrender control over 3 subjects: defense, foreign affairs, and communications. The rest of their internal affairs would remain their own. And for those who hesitated, there was a combination of pressure and incentives. He offered financial settlements, known as privy purses, to the rulers. But he also made it very clear that if they chose independence, he could not guarantee their protection from the popular uprisings that would surely follow. The strategy worked with breathtaking speed. Through relentless diplomacy, strategic coercion, and sheer political will, Patel achieved the near impossible. Within a year, almost all the states had acceded to India. A coherent nation was beginning to take shape on the map. But 3 states, 3 formidable holdouts, would test his resolve to its very limits. First, Junagadh, in his home state of Gujarat. A state with an overwhelming Hindu population, but its Muslim ruler, the Nawab, decided to join Pakistan. Geographically, this made no sense. Junagadh was surrounded by India. Patel's response was swift and decisive. He enforced a blockade and supported a plebiscite, a public vote. The people of Junagadh voted overwhelmingly to join India. Next was Hyderabad, a massive, wealthy state right in the heart of the country, ruled by the Nizam, one of the richest men in the world. He dreamed of an independent Hyderabad, but internal chaos was growing. The Nizam's private militia, the Razakars, were terrorizing the population. Patel waited, negotiated, but when violence spiraled out of control, he acted. In September of 1948, he authorized what was called a police action, codenamed Operation Polo. The Indian army moved in, and in a matter of days, the Nizam's rule was over.